Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a literal 5,400-year-old technological thriller, the incredible story behind the very letters you're reading right now. It's something so deeply baked into our daily lives that we completely take it for granted, but honestly, it is arguably humanity's absolute greatest invention. Just look at that simple word right there, hello. Think about the everyday, almost mundane act of reading and writing it. Whether you're quickly jotting down a grocery list or firing off a text message halfway across the globe, you are using a piece of tech that took thousands of years of human ingenuity, trial, error, and massive cross-cultural exchange to finally perfect. So, let's actually dive into this, because this right here is the fundamental problem writing was trying to solve. Imagine you've just had the most important thought of your entire life, and you desperately need to tell someone who isn't there, or maybe someone who hasn't even been born yet. Before writing came along, you just couldn't. If you died, everything you knew died with you, unless you somehow managed to pass it on orally. Human knowledge was strictly capped by living memory. Okay, leap 1 and 2, from symbols to sounds. Let's look at the first major breakthroughs that finally solved this massive problem of human memory by creating a durable mark. You know, it really all started with counting. Way back, early humans used physical marks, like the notches on the 20,000-year-old Ishango bone, just to track things like the passing of days. But true writing, that sparked from pure practical necessity. Around 3400 BCE in the city of Uruk, Sumerian merchants had a very real problem. They simply had way too many transactions to remember. To track shipments of grain and livestock, they started pressing the cut ends of reeds into wet clay tablets, and boom, record-keeping was born. Now, these earliest marks were pictograms. A drawing of an ox meant, well, an ox. A drawing of the sun meant the sun. And don't get me wrong, it was a massive cognitive leap just to realize that a mark could stand for something other than itself. But pictograms have a hard limit. A drawing of an ox can't exactly express a past tense, a complex legal code, or a prayer, right? The ultimate cognitive breakthrough happened when these civilizations realized they could use the sound of an object's name to build completely different words. Let me give you an example. In Sumerian, the word for arrow was pronounced T. They drew a simple pointed line to represent it. But the word for life was also pronounced T. So when scribes wanted to write about life, they just drew the arrow. This is called the rebus principle, and it is absolutely crucial. It's the cognitive hinge that all phonetic writing turns on. This brilliantly illustrates the birth of phonetic writing. We're literally transforming pictures into sounds. Suddenly, those wedge-shaped marks of cuneiform weren't just a ledger for grain anymore. They were a vessel for complex human thought. If you could speak it out loud, you could document it. This shift is exactly what meant humanity could start writing down laws, astronomical observations, and the world's oldest stories, like the Epic of Gilgamesh. Moving on to leap 3, the alphabet revolution. Because while those early systems were amazing, they created a brand new headache, scribal elitism. See, writing was just way too hard for everyday folks. Scribes had to memorize hundreds, sometimes thousands, of incredibly complex signs. It was this highly specialized, elite profession. But around 1050 BCE, these seafaring traders, known as the Phoenicians, totally changed the game. They were constantly navigating the Mediterranean, and they needed a system that was fast, portable, and most importantly, easy to learn. What they came up with was brilliantly simple, and it democratized literacy in a way the world had literally never seen. Their big solution? They identified the absolute smallest units of sound, phonemes, and gave each one a single dedicated symbol. They completely threw out the need for thousands of word signs, whittling an entire language down to just 22 signs representing consonants. Think about that. A merchant's apprentice could become functionally literate in weeks instead of years. For the first time, universal literacy was actually a thinkable concept. Let's see how this builds over time. Because the Phoenician system was all consonants, you kind of had to guess the vowels. But as the system spread through trade, the Greeks got their hands on it and made a huge addition. They took letters the Phoenicians used for guttural sounds and turned them into vowels. Now, any spoken word could be written with absolute perfect precision. The Romans then took that, adapted it into the Latin alphabet, and it spread across Europe. Actually, every single letter you are looking at right now descends directly from a mark made by a Phoenician trader over 3,000 years ago. Crazy, right? All right, leap 4, from press to screen. The alphabet made reading accessible? Sure, but now humanity faced a brand new, massive problem of scale. How do you physically reproduce the books? Just look at this staggering contrast. For over 1,000 years, the only way to copy a book was entirely by hand. You'd have one monk in a medieval scriptorium, painstakingly scraping vellum and writing with a quill, spending an entire year just to copy one single Bible. Books were insanely rare and incredibly expensive. Then, 1440 rolls around. Johannes Gutenberg combines the screw press, oil-based ink, and individually cast metal letters to create movable type. Suddenly, a page that took a day to write could be printed in minutes. The printing press was the ultimate agent of change. It utterly shattered the monopoly on knowledge. Before Gutenberg, having a library of 50 books was a massive flex. Just 50 years after Gutenberg, there were up to 20 million books circulating in Europe. Because ideas could now fly freely and cheaply, a monk named Martin Luther could post his 95 Theses in 1517, and his printed pamphlets spread across Germany in a matter of weeks, literally sparking the Protestant Reformation. Which brings us to the digital era, the printing press of our very own lifetime. If Gutenberg solves the problem of scale, the modern era solved the problem of global instantaneous distribution. Tips for this. It's 1989 at CERN, and Tim Berners-Lee conceives the World Wide Web. By the early 90s, it's open to the public. And what this essentially meant was that the cost of publishing just collapsed to practically zero. Anyone with a connected device could instantly publish a text that was readable by anyone else on Earth the very second they hit send. To put that into perspective, today, roughly 5 billion people have access to the internet. 5 billion. That means 5 billion people are holding the entire surviving written record of human civilization right in the palms of their hands. Every book, article, and digitized ancient scroll is just a tap away. That Sumerian merchant in Uruk pressing his cut reed into wet clay just to keep track of his grain, he could never in a million years have imagined where his little idea would lead. But as with every single revolution in human communication, this digital era brings entirely new challenges. That medieval monk in the scriptorium, he read slowly, deeply, and repeatedly because books were rare treasures. Today, we are navigating an absolute torrent of text, scrolling and skimming at lightning speed. It forces us to ask a pretty tough question. Are we trading deep, careful thinking for rapid consumption? The history of writing shows us that we always navigate these transitions, but they are never without a little friction. Yet, through all of these monumental leaps, from notches on a bone, to clay wedges, to Phoenician letters, to the printing press, and finally to the glowing pixels you see now, this one profound truth remains totally unchanged. Writing has made human civilization cumulative. It's the magic that lets one human mind reach out and touch another across any distance of space or time. It allows every single generation to build directly on the knowledge of the past. You are literally holding a 5,400-year-old piece of technology in your hands today. Every time you type out a sentence, you are directly connected to those Phoenician traders, the Greek philosophers, the medieval monks, and the digital pioneers. So I want to leave you with this final, vital thought. The Sumerians gave you the incredible gift of sending your thoughts across time. What are you going to do with it?